Welcome to the latest episode of the Metaphysical Corner. I have to go back on a couple of things that I said. Not take back, but expound on. I said that I never found a book on consciousness, well, I have. It's called Molecular Conscious. Molecular Consciousness. This book is awesome. It's the only word I can think of. I'll explain it now. The other thing is, I gotta go back. Well, I will say, I still have yet to find consciousness even brought up in any, book about like biochemistry and that type of thing, which of course is where it's done. I was the one who said, maybe consciousness is actually we perceive with our soul. I think I still subscribe to that. Here's the thing, guys. I am learning as you are, because I do research for these videos. I learn too. I really do. And I'm kind of on a learning curve with you, if you will. So, the other thing I'm going to go back on is this book is so well written. I do not have the gift of gab, so to speak, and I know exactly what I want to say, but I can't find the words to say what they are. Does that make sense? The author of this book has that gift that I lack. It's just as much easier for her than it is for me. So what I'm going to do is read you portions of it. And I know that I don't typically read you stuff, but I think I'm a good reader. I think you'll understand that, the way she uses her words and the like, it says it far, far better than I ever could. And it really brings home the point. And I'm going to interject with a lot of comments, areas where I totally agree, areas where I'm not quite so sure. But and never at any point I think that she's like dead wrong. And it is a she. Anyway, so I'm going to start with her introduction. It says, I think, therefore I am. Can we be and not think? The power of the mind is such that it often makes us believe that we owe our existence to it. We are, however, made of molecules and atoms, and they constantly remind us that our mind doesn't have total control over our lives. Who's going to argue that? Actually, we are completely subject to the demands of our molecules that make us up, which we cannot expose or cannot ignore without exposing ourselves to great danger. Whatever the power and intricacy of our mind, we cannot exist without eating, drinking, sleeping. Our molecules have their own rules, and they are obviously beyond the influence of the mind. When the time is right, once the signal has been given, our molecules, still following their own rules and principles, will alter their path and return to another life, and in so doing, destroy our own. They will do it whether it suits our mind or not. It will perish anyway. Our bodies will be destroyed, while our molecules, made of imperishable atoms, will join others in a new destiny. It seems undeniable that we are made up of matter and mind, and we spend much of our lives torn between the miserable needs of our flesh, made of heavy and coarse matter, and the noble aspirations of our mind, which is fine and subtle. However, from the scientific point of view, this image is incorrect. No scientist can declare today that matter is heavy and coarse. Quantum physics teaches that matter on an atomic scale appears very different than it does on a larger scale. As incredible as it may seem, In spite of all the knowledge accumulated since the beginning of civilization, from alchemy to molecular biology and the cosmology of black holes, the intricate nature of matter which surrounds us and from which we are made became at the dawn of the 20th century one of the biggest enigmas of science. Every bit of matter is an inexplicable and unexplainable phenomenon, a subtle and mysterious mixture that sometimes behaves like a particle and sometimes acts like a wave. Imagine, for example, something that seems like a grain of sand and sometimes looks like a ray of light. Truly wonderful. Because no better vocabulary has been found to describe this phenomenon, we call it the wave-particle duality of matter. It can lead to confusion because it seems to say matter is a wave and a particle that matter is a wave and a particle that cohabit together. While the actual phenomenon is actually far more complex. Made of countless numbers of these enigmatic matters, are we? A cluster of particles? A particle of waves? Both? On Earth, we distinguish between living and non-living matter, or inert. Living matter includes animals and plants. Inert matter is basically everything else, solids, liquids, gases of our plants. Inert matter forms the setting, more or less immutable, in which life, unceasingly renewed, unfolds. However, chemically speaking, there is no difference between living and inert matter. Now, think about that for a minute. There's no difference between you and, like I say, the streets outside your home, your rocks that surround your apartment or house or whatever. It's all atoms and molecules, same stuff, same elements. Both are made of the same atoms and are animated by the same energies. A Russian biologist, a pioneer investigator in the origin of life, summarized centuries of research in 1924 that numerous attempts undertaken to discover some specific vital energies resident only in living organisms invariable ends in total failure. In other words, no form of energy recognized to date corresponds to what we usually call vital energy. I'm going to stop right there for that. Now, the point is made. No energy thus far recognized. I believe that energy exists. And I believe you can call it life force, vital force, but it's an energy that that the scientists have not either discovered or not willing to admit that exists. Let me continue. Vital energy is therefore a non-existent concept in the scientific vocabulary. That's important. Scientific. Its absence, however, did not prevent research from making remarkable advances in medicine. Surgical implants of organs, artificial insemination, genetics are all such examples of progress. Of course, there are many, many more. Surgical implantation of lost my point. However, in all these developments, vital energy remains outside of the equations. Once again, scientifically, but not metaphysically. Vital energy is a superfluous concept in the vision modern science gives us in today's world. This makes sense, because the scientists either don't want to admit it, they can't find it, they say don't exist. I think they couldn't be more wrong, but we'll get to that. The differences between a living organism and inert matter, which seem obvious to us on a large scale, quickly fade away at the atomic scale. Even the energies that animate living matter are not different from those that activate inert matter. In fact, most experts believe that living matter developed through a very long evolutionary process that began with inert matter. I'm not quite so sure about that. Well, of course, if you believe in evolution, how did the very first living organism come from? Now, I don't have an answer for it, but as we read on, maybe we'll find out more. If for practitioners of modern science, vital energy probably belongs to the world of spirit. Its source was at the core of inert matter for their predecessors, the alchemists. Very interesting. If you ever want to read, I've read several books on the ancient alchemists. Very interesting. She gets into what everyone thinks they wanted to turn lead into gold. Well, that was one of their things, but they got far deeper, as we will find. Back in the farthest antiquity, alchemy was born from the discovery of metals and the craft of metalworking. It was a secret practice associated with obscure experiments and transcribed into a coded language. The alchemists found experiencing themselves to divine wrath. I mean, the Catholic Church was used at the time that they had gotten wind of this, they would burn them all at the stake. By revealing the science of which they were trustees. Their goal was to discover the philosopher's stone. I think we've all heard of that one time or another, which they claimed could prepare the elixir of life and thereby become immortal. For alchemists, the source of wisdom and external life was found in the entrails of inert matter. Alchemists also claimed that the philosopher's stone could transform lead or mercury into gold. Well, needless to say, alchemy attracted many frauds and charlatans, human nature being what it is. It was often associated with sorcery. In truth, even if the transmutation of lead or mercury into gold can be realized under very specific conditions and very high cost, it can be done with modern technology. But it's obvious that this would have been achieved with means available to the alchemists. This is why today alchemy does not seem very serious to us, but it was to them. Yet to summarize, to someone summarily dismiss alchemy is to forget that this science was born at the same time as philosophy. It was practiced by all the great civilizations, Egypt, Greece, Mesopotamia, as well as the great Sir Isaac Newton. Matter of fact, one of the greatest scientific minds of all time, he, as it says, he devoted much of his life to it. He did. Very secretly, I might add. He was a huge proponent of alchemy, believe it or not. Employing Hermetic texts, supposed symbols whose meaning was hidden to everyone, true alchemists were interested in the metamorphosis of the soul. So this is why I say, everyone thinks of alchemy as, the lead and the gold thing. Oh no, they were much deeper than that. The quest of the alchemist was to study matter in order to understand his own being, thereby transcending it. The practice of alchemy constituted an inner journey, a path to supreme wisdom. Only humility and righteousness practiced over time enabled the students to walk this path, discover the philosopher's stone, and achieve metamorphosis. For that purpose, he mobilized his entire being, his fears, his guilt, his anger, his doubts, his passions. The interpretation of an alchemical experiment has direct implications for the researcher. In purifying metals, he was also purifying himself. To make gold from mercury and lead was a mystical experience, and this depended more on the researcher and his human qualities than on the extent of his knowledge. A successful experiment would result in the transformation of one's very being. From this ancient art, chemistry, what we call today modern chemistry, was born. Chemistry owes its existence to alchemy. In today's labs, they still use utensils, tubes, crucibles, and stills, and experimental techniques like filtration, distillation, that were developed by alchemists. However, in order to respect the limits it imposed on itself, modern chemistry had to sacrifice the mysterious aspect of its past, however rich its promise was. Can we, as alchemists believed, go through a metamorphosis by studying matter? In the pages to come, we will look deeper into this possibility. It has three parts to it. One is talking about matter itself. The second part is about quantum theory, and the third part is heavy duty. I think is a good way to put it. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm gonna read the first chapter, and then we'll make it we'll call it a day for this video. But it is the start. I hope you understand. I hope you agree. Once again, that she says words. She puts in words that I find hard to find. So I hope you're enjoying this, and I hope her words come across to you. Her first chapter is called "Everything Moves." In 1827, the Scottish botanist Robert Brown was observing particles of pollen suspended in water through his microscope. Like others before him, he noticed the constant chaotic motion of these particles, which never stopped. This motion could not be explained by any physical phenomenon known. Initially, he believed he had finally found that vital energy, and saw this movement as a characteristic of the living world. However, he continued his research and realized the movement occurred with all kinds of particles, whether they were living or not. According to his observations, the motions of any suspended particle were observable as long as the size of those particles did not exceed a few hundredths of a millimeter. Well, it was not until the beginning of the 20th century that the origin of this mysterious phenomenon, which is now known as Brownian motion, after Brown, the biologist who first noticed it, was discovered. And it was done by none other than Albert Einstein in 1905. Famous for his theory of relativity, but his explanation of the Brownian motion was essential to the final collapse of the non-atomic theory that reigned ever since the golden age of Greek civilization. Einstein showed that the random particle of movement of particles suspended in water was due to collisions with even smaller particles, which was, of course, the water molecules themselves, which, of course, are made of atoms. These water molecules are in constant random motion, pushing larger particles in their path like bumper cars. Good example. This interpretation was revolutionary because it logically required the presence of atoms, the existence of which were still contested at that time, back in 1905. For the first time, the existence of atoms was finally established. They were necessary to explain a phenomenon, and their presence could no longer be denied. That we conclude that matter is in constant motion, thus we conclude that matter is in constant motion, whether it's alive or not. The atoms of the page of the book you hold in your hand are moving, as well as the atoms of the air. Those are your brain, those are your heart, and those are stone. We live in a world where nothing is ever at rest. Everything is in a state of constant agitation. It is not necessary to be equipped with a microscope to observe Brownian motion. The smoke from a cigarette, made up of tiny particles, hangs in the air or does not fall straight down like water, because the light particles of smoke are being hit by atoms of air that are in constant motion. Their speed can be very high. At room temperature, the speed of atoms in air can reach 600 miles an hour. Think about that. But they don't go very far, because the interspace between atoms is so small. It don't go 600 miles an hour for very long. Okay? They constantly collide with each other, and on average, the distance they travel is almost zero, because their trajectory is constantly modified because they're crashing into other molecules. The movement of atoms is related to temperature. This makes total sense. And the hotter something is, the more rapid its atoms are moving. The higher the temperature, the faster the movement, and vice versa. When the temperature decreases, the atoms slow down and come closer and attract each other. Thus, when a gas cools, its atoms slow down and move closer to each other, becomes more dense. Therefore, at a certain temperature, gas turns into a liquid. And at lower temperatures, it turns into a solid. In solid atoms, in solid and a solid atoms are very close together, but they still move. In theory, if atoms were sufficiently cool, they would be so tightly squeezed against each other that they would become immobilized. Calculations show that this temperature at which this would happen is absolute zero, which is 459.67 degrees below zero Fahrenheit. So, people in the north, of which we are, next time it's 20 below outside on a super cold winter day, think, hey, it could still be another 440 degrees colder. So, put things in perspective. This temperature is called absolute zero. Theory tells us that this temperature cannot be reached. I think I mentioned in a previous telecast, if I remember, that we here on Earth, so they have machines or equipment. We have come within millionths of a degree of it, but it is theoretically unattainable. Theory tells us that this temperature cannot be reached. Therefore, a completely motionless atom cannot exist. Above this theoretical low temperature, matter moves. And the more it moves, the more its molecules are moving apart, as if the void between them were expanding like rubber heated by the sun. So, I mean, even on a planet Pluto, I think, if I remember right, their surface temperature there is about 400 degrees below zero. But it gets a little bit, and of heat, so it's only 40 degrees above, or 60 degrees above absolute zero, but that's a big 60 degrees. Of course, it gets that heat from the sun, even though the sun is a very long distance away. And I think I'm going to stop there, because with these chapters really build on one another. And the next one's called The Strange Empty World of Atoms, which we've talked about before, but once again, she puts it better than I ever could. So, and don't forget to like us on Facebook. I hope you're fascinated. I'm telling you, this book is excellent. It really is. I really like the way she writes, and she's got, like I said, she can put it in words in ways I can't really love. So, we will go through most of this book. It's really not a big book at all. And after I'm done, I'll give you the name and of it and the author. And if you want to go buy it yourself, I'm sure you can find it online, on Amazon, I'm sure. So have fun, and don't forget to like us on Facebook, as I said. And we'll see you soon.